last week,
Oh,
and
that was a great class.
let's share that screen.
I found a wonderful passage from the Zohar related to it. I have to share it with you.
Oh wow, the Zohar. I don't know if I can handle the Zohar.
I'm reading that tonight, but on Shabbos you'll be all right. You'll have an extra
Okay,
from the Shabbos.
if you say so. All right, so I intentionally called it Sefer Bimidbar and not Bamidbar, which is really a grammatical point, but it's Bimidbar because the Sefer begins by the Bereshit Moshe Bimidbar Sinai. It's if you call it Bamidbar, which means in the desert, it's in the desert full stop. But Bimidbar implies that there's another descriptor of the desert, Bimidbar Sinai in the Sinai desert. But that's also right. We're used to calling it the Book of Numbers, and I think last year we spoke about the reason why it's called the Book of Numbers, and that's true for Chazal also. And in many rabbinic sources, it's called Chumash Pikudim, which the book of counting, the book of Numbers isn't so far off from that. But we're going to look at something different tonight. Sefer Bamidbar is really interesting in that it's according to the Ramban, there is no permanent, everything in the book is temporary. Everything is related to the time of the travels in the desert. There are mitzvot that are mentioned throughout the Sefer, and it's interesting to see how the Ramban deals with that. But he says that fundamentally, it's a book just about the experience in the desert, and why something of a temporary nature would be given its own Sefer is quite interesting. I find it fascinating because I always think of it as the book in which the theoretical halachot, the theoretical laws we were given in the second half of Sefer Shmot and in Sefer Vayikra become actualized. We see how we actually live with those commandments. It's not just a theoretical thing. And of course, it's a preparation for entering into Israel, which was supposed to take place imminently. And then after the incident with the spies got delayed by 39 and a half years. It starts out as a book that's supposed to be a very short-lived time frame, and then it gets expanded and stretched out much longer due to our inappropriate behaviors. So we're going to look at the beginning of chapter 2, which tells us how they're going about their travels. Remember, they're at Midbar Sinai, they're in the Sinai desert, and they're preparing to leave Mount Sinai. And the original plan is they're going to just keep marching northeast to get into Eretz Canaan, into the land of Israel. It should be a very short journey from here. They're a big people. They don't have any buses or trains or airplanes, so it's going to be on foot. It's going to be a little bit of a journey, but we're talking a matter of weeks or months, not a matter of years at this point. And so that's how we start. And so in the Torah's description, we'll just look at some of it. God speaks to Moshe and Aaron saying, Ish al diglo be'otot levet avotam yachanu b'nei Israel, mineged saviv la'ohel moed yachanu. The Israelites shall camp each man with his standard under the banner of the ancestral house. They shall camp around the tent of meeting at a distance. So crucial to this is we have the way in which the camp is set up, right? All the tribes, and there's a lot of discussion about, as we'll see, why they're grouped the way that they're grouped and why each one is given the specific spot that they're given. But the most important thing is that the entire nation is surrounding the Mishkan, is surrounding the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. And that is the most important part of the camp. It's even described as its own camp, right? There's the camp of the Kodesh, there's the camp of the Levium, then there's the camp of the rest of the nation. But that at the center is the Mishkan, and that certainly sends home the message that is the most important thing. That everyone is surrounded is surrounding the Mishkan, the tent of meeting. And so then we get into a description of how they look when they travel. Hachonim kedma mizracha, dego machane Yehuda letzivotam, v'nasi livnei Yehuda nachshon ben Aminadav. Camped on the front or east side, the standard of the division of Judah, troop by troop, chieftain of the Judahites, Nachshon ben Aminadav. Utzva'o fikudehem arba v'shivim elef v'sheish meot, and the soldiers count of Yehuda counted 47,600. Achonim alav matei Yisachar v'nasi livnei Zachar Netano ben Suar. Those encamped with Yehuda is the tribe of Yisachar, whose chieftain or leader was Netano ben Suar. Utzva'u fikudav arba'a v'chamishim elef v'arba meot. And Yisachar numbered 54,400. Matei Zvulun v'nasi livnei Zvulun Eliav ben Chelon, and also with Yehuda was Zevulun, whose chief was Eliav ben Chelon. We have the count of Zevulun, and that's how it is, right? So each side, they're in a square formation. Each side has one lead tribe, which is called the degel, the standard or the flag bearer. And then along with them are two more tribes. So that each side, though, has one tribe that's in charge. And it's quite interesting if you look at number 17, verse 17. Right, it tells us again that the Levites and the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting, are in the center of this whole encampment, and that's the way that it's described. So for each of the lead tribes on each side of the camp, north, east, west, and south, we're told that they are all diglo, that they have a standard or a flag. There's actually a debate. Many commentators say that it was only the lead tribe that had a flag, and the flag was a way for everyone to see. I don't know how big these flags were. I imagine like when you drive past a car dealership and they have the massive 200 by 200 foot American flag flying that you can see from miles away. I imagine something like that, so that all the troops marching behind could see and know. But other commentators, and this is the path we're going to follow, say that actually each tribe had its own flag, and that there was the lead flag, which was sort of the standard bearer, but that each tribe had its own flag.
Rabbi, do you think you could make the text a bit bigger?
Yes. Sorry. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. So before we get into any of our rabbinic sources or commentators on it, I just wanted to share the insight of Amital, because I thought it was interesting. I wasn't sure where else to fit it. But he says, right, so the key pasuk, sorry, let's back up. Let's just look at the key pasuk one more time, verse number 2. And I'll read the Hebrew again. Ish al diglo beotot leveit avotam yachanu b'nei Israel, mineged saviv la'ohel moed yachanu. The Israelites shall camp each man with his standard under the banners of their ancestral house. They shall camp around the tent of meeting at a distance. So the pasuk says each man for his standards for his ancestral house. And we'll come back to these key phrases. And sort of as an aside, although I think it will tie into what we're going to say the rest of this year, Rav Amital writes, every man in his own camp refers to the concept of feeling at home. Regardless of how successful a person may be, he always prefers to be in a supportive environment. The discomfort of an unfamiliar place makes it very difficult for a person to succeed there. In this week's Haftarah, God promises, I will make a covenant on that day with the wild beasts and birds of the sky and animals which crawl upon the ground. I will rend the bow, sword, and war from the earth and lay them down for all eternity. In this view of the end of days, the ideal state of society, even the animals are able to exist harmoniously with man. What a person needs is the ability to feel comfortable in his environment and even at ease with the natural world. If a person feels out of place, he cannot realize his full potential. So part of the message of these flags is that each person and each tribe, right, each tribe, each individual member of each tribe should have a home, should have a place which is comfortable and natural for them. And that's necessary in order for the nation to thrive and succeed. And that, of course, has many lessons for us in our day and age. Rav Amital talks about it. He was a Rosh Yeshiva. He talks about when someone comes to visit the yeshiva, do you tell them our door is open? You're always welcome. Or do you walk over to them, shake their hand, offer to sit and learn with them, show them what's going on, sit with them at a meal, right? You could have an open door policy, which isn't a very warm policy. It says it has to be a policy and an atmosphere which really creates that home environment. He talks about it in the context of Israeli society, welcoming in Olim, welcoming in new immigrants. There's a lot that can be said about making sure everyone has that feeling of home, the comfort
It's
of home.
like Nitivot.
Like Nitivot. We strive for this, right? Hopefully we get it right.
Lovely.
Okay, and then so as I said, most assume that each tribe had its own flag, and this is based on this Medrash Rabbah. There wasn't a full translation, so I apologize I don't have the full translation, but I just want to read one piece in the Hebrew, just 2 lines, and then we'll read the English summary of the rest of it. So the Medrash begins be'otot, with signs. Simanin hayu lechol nasi v'nasi mapa v'tzeva al kol mapa u'mapa kitzeva shel avanim tovot shayu al libo shel Aharon. Each tribe had symbols and a flag and a color, and each one corresponded to the stones on the breastplate on the heart of Aaron the priest. Okay, so it's something fundamental to each tribe that their flag corresponded not only to whatever their family, their ancestors represented, but it also had this very strong connection to the Kohen Gadol and to the key garment, the key kalim that he wore in the Kodesh Kodashim, in the Holy of Holies, in the Mishkan, which was the center of the camp, and with which he performed the service on behalf of the entire nation. So we have this connection being really fortified. And the Medrash proceeds, and it tells us what the sign was for each of the tribes, and this is probably familiar to anyone who's been to a shul other than Netivot Shalom, which has either the stained glass windows or the covering on the Aron with the 12 tribes and the different signs. And this Medrash is the source for those symbols on the Shvatim that we have. So Ruvain's flag was red and had a picture of mandrakes. Shimon was green and had a picture of the city of Shechem. Levi's was green, black and red, and had a picture of the Urim and Tumim, the thing that the Kohen Gadol wore. Judah's was sky blue and had a picture of a lion. Yisachar was bluish black and had a picture of a sun and a moon. Zevulun was white. I'm sorry, I have the English here. Zevulun was white and had a picture of a ship. Dan was sapphire and had a picture of a snake. Gad was gray and had a picture of an encampment. Naphtali's was wine red and had a picture of a deer. Asher's was pearl and had a picture of an olive tree. Joseph's was deep black and had a picture of 2 princes. Benjamin's was multicolored with a picture of a wolf. Okay, so we're not going to go into the symbolism and where each of these signs goes to, but that each one had a very particular sign which related to something in either the territory they were heading to, their future primary professions, or something from the tribe's history. Quite interesting. Then the next Medrash, which is a continuation, is just the next paragraph in the Medrash Rabbah. We're going to pick up in the second line, Bisha'ah. Bisha'ah shamar Kadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe aseh otam degalim k'Moshe nitavu. Hitchil Moshe Meitzar. When God told Moshe to make a flag for each of the tribes, Moshe became very agitated, very troubled. Amar, Achshav atida hamachloket lihinatin bein hashvatim. He said, there's going to be argument. There's going to be machloket among the tribes. Imani omer l'shivto shel Yehuda sheyishre b'mizrach, v'hu omer i'efshar ela b'darom, v'chein Reuven v'chein Ephraim, v'chein kol shevet v'shevet, mani yoseh. Let's say that I tell the tribe of Yehuda that they are supposed to go in the east. And Yehuda says, nope, we want to go in the south. And Reuven is told to go to the west, and Reuven says, we want the north. And etc., etc. Moshe says, what am I going to do? They're going to get angry at me. They're going to get angry at each other. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe, ma ichpat lecha, ein tzrichin lach. Moshe, don't worry. They don't need you to tell them where to go. They don't need you. Me'atzman hein makirin diratan, ela diateke yesh biyadan miyakov avihem he'ach le'shot v'degalim. They know on their own where they're supposed to go. Each tribe knows its proper place in the camp because they have an image, a map, a diagram that was given to them from Yaakov of how the flag should be set up. Eini mechadesh alehem, kfar yesh lahem tachsis miyakov avihem kemoshe ta'anu oto, v'kifu et mitato, kach yakifu et hamishkan. They already have a tradition from Yaakov in the same way which they gathered around his bed as he was giving his final blessings before dying. That's the order, that's the way in which they will camp around the Mishkan. So this encampment dates way back in history. It's something which is essential and already ingrained into the mindset, into the collective memory of each of the tribes, how they should go. So there's no cause for Moshe to be overly concerned about them not agreeing with his placement. Any questions on any of this? Okay. So the next thing I wanted to do is just to think for a moment about the function of a degel, the function of a flag or a standard. And it doesn't appear that often in Tanakh. There's a few other places where it appears. The first is of Psalm 20, which we say every day as part of our davening. At the conclusion section after the second Ashrei in Shachrit. Iranana b'yeshuatecha v'shem Elokeinu nid gol. Male Hashem kol mish'alotecha.
It's not a good place.
May we shout for joy in your victory, arrayed by standards in the name of our God. May the Lord fulfill your every wish. Atayadati Kyoshia Hashem Meshicho Yaneo Mishmei Katsho Bigvarot Yesham Yamino. I know the Lord will give victory to his anointed, will answer him from his heavenly sanctuary with the mighty victories of his right arm. Elev Arechev ve'elev Asusim v'anachnu b'shem Hashem Elokeinu naskir. They call on chariots, they call on horses, we call on the name of the Lord our God. What's the significance of the degel, of the flag in these psukim from Tehillim? It's all about military, right? Victory. It's about rallying around God so that we'll be victorious. As Rashi says, Ubishmo need goal. We will be assemble in the name of our God. Nitasef v'na'aseh. We will gather and become strong. So it's about, right, the flag here serves as a military purpose, a military gathering, a military rallying call, something along those lines. Then we go to Shir Hashirim. Yeah, Beatrice.
Yeah. Is it necessarily an actual flag?
No.
It's a metaphor, right?
I think it could be a metaphor. It certainly seems like it could be a metaphor, yeah. Like the reason I hesitate is just because it's so common. We know throughout history that armies would carry flags into battle. But here it seems more of a metaphor, right? That this is going to, our rallying call is going to be around God. That's how we're going to be victorious.
But the actual flag has to be some sort of a banner because it was a specific description for each tribe, colors and everything.
For the tribes. Beatrice is saying that the pasuk in Tehillim.
Okay.
Now we come to Shir Hashirim. So source number 7, it appears twice. And both of these are made into beautiful songs, right? As much of Shir Hashirim is. Heviani al Beit Hayayin v'diglo alai ahava. He brought me to the banquet room and his banner of love was over me. And the second pasuk, Dodi tzach ve'adom dagul mervava. My beloved is clear-skinned and ruddy, preeminent among 10,000s. What does the flag mean here? What does it symbolize?
Great love.
Yeah, we're in Shir Hashirim, so it's going to be about romantic love, right? Great romantic love. So Arthur, our friend Rabbi Kasher, says as follows. A flag can be a marker of love or the banner of war. Which is it then in our Parsha, when the children of Israel first set up camp under their flags? As they come from this one nation made up of many tribes, are they bonding together as a family or defensively marking out separate tribal territory? All of that potential is within them. They might go either way. In fact, the rest of the book of Numbers will continue to play out this tension. There will be episodes of mutiny, civil war, and assassination in the chapters ahead, but the people will also gather together for national ceremonies, communal blessings, and collective mourning. Through their long desert journey, they will be learning what it means to be a nation, the good, the bad, and the sometimes very ugly. When the book of Numbers draws to a close, they will find themselves standing at the Jordan, ready to cross over into the promised land, where all of these lessons of nationhood will be put to the test. It is a test which continues even today for every nation standing under a flag. So we have this dual symbolism, right? And so we have, on the one hand, the reminder of the way that this camp is set up and how the flags are positioned, that at the heart and the center has to be the Mishkan, which represents service of God, which represents Torah. But we also have this dual symbol of the flags, which serve to the nation, I think, this dual purpose. On the one hand, you got to be ready for battle. You're going to be going to conquer the land. But on the other hand, it can't only be about battle and military, because that's going to lead to strife and division and to us being a cold-hearted people. We have to also remember that the flag can be used as a rallying cry for love, for connection in a much more positive way. So we have this dual symbolism.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
it just occurred to me perhaps that there's another symbolism as well. They were, let's see, Yaakov, they say that Yaakov was concerned that not all of them were on the same page in regard to Hashem, right?
Right.
And so when they said the Shema, all together, all of them, he was extremely relieved and pleased and so on. Right, and they were carrying his coffin, right? So what does it take for a people to remain a people for thousands of years? There's got to be a level of commitment
Right.
to what the tradition is been given to us. And for them, since they now they had the Torah and the Ark and the fulfillment clearly of the promise of being able to go to the land, which was one of the promises to the Avos and so on. It seems to me that flag also represents our whole tradition.
Beautiful.
The Torah and all the rest of it, because that's what keeps us alive. You know?
Yeah, very, very beautiful thought. I think that's definitely true. So it goes a step deeper. If we continue in this midrashic tradition, this is actually a couple paragraphs earlier from Bamidbar Rabbah, and the Medrash tells us as follows: B'sha'ah shenigla HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Har Sinai, Yardu imo kaf bet revivot shel malachim. When God revealed himself to the Jewish people at Sinai, 220,000 angels descended with him. Vayu kulam asuyim digalim. And each one of these angels bore, I think the way it's read is digalim, assembled by flags. Right? Each one carried multiple flags.
Really? I didn't know that.
Kevan shara'u otan Yisrael shem asuyim digalim, hitchilu mitavim lidgalim. When the Jewish people saw these angels bearing their flags, the Jewish people say, we want flags too. Amar ulveikach anu nasim digalim kemotan. We want to be just like the angels. And then continuing a few lines further down in the Medrash, Amar lehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mani tavim lasot digalim, chayechem shanim memalei mishalotechem. God says to them, since you, right, given that you want to bear these flags, I promise to you that I will grant your wish. Yimale Hashem kol mishalotecha. It says God will answer all your requests. Miyad hayidia HaKadosh Baruch Hu otam l'Yisrael, v'amar leMoshe, leich asei otam digalim kemoshe nitavu. And so God immediately informs Moshe that he should make for them flags as they desire.
Wow.
So it's a beautiful image, right? That these flags, right? I think to what, building on what Anne just said, what we said previously, certainly give us something much more lofty to aspire for, right? That they were supposed to be emulating the angels with these flags. And right, that's a fascinating topic in itself. The relation of the Jewish people and angels, specifically at Har Sinai, is quite fascinating. But it also gives us, I think, a direction towards a much more, we'll call it Hasidic or spiritual view of these flags, which is that if each angel is bearing its own flag, then it's, it's very easy to read the Medrash that it wasn't just the tribe saying we want a flag for our tribe, but it was really each individual saying I want my own flag. And so part two is that we certainly have this idea that the flags were not only for the tribes but for each individual. Let's skip to number 12, which is the Netziv, and we'll come back to the Hasidic comment. But the Netziv says as follows. Otot leveit avotam, right, with signs for their father's home. Ilu haya kativ al diglo leveit avotam, mashma'ot gam kein shaya lachol shevet sorech hashayach lo. Right, if it would have said al diglo leveit avotam, on the flag for their father's home, for their that would imply that each tribe got what was coming to it. Right, as we saw in the Medrash previously, right? Reuven got the mandrakes, and Judah had the lion, etc. And each tribe's flag was designed according to its specific tribal characteristics. If that's the case, then Beit Avotam, their ancestral home, means their tribe. Aval lashon leotot, right? But the pasuk doesn't say lediglo leveit avotam; it says beotot leveit avotam, with signs. So what's meant by this word otot? Mashma od kavana. To kol shevet hayalo kama batei avot. Within each tribe were many different family clans. V'chol beit av hayalo degel bifnei atzmo. And each clan had its own clan tribe. Katan be'otat tzura shel degel hagadol mikol hashevet. Like a miniature version, but right, sort of in line with the tribe flag, but each clan had their own unique flag. Kol beit av rashum alav aleph bet gimel hainu be'otot leveit avotam. Kol beit av ot shelo. Right, and it said whatever the family name was, and that's the significance of otot leveit avotam, signs for, or as he reads it, maybe otiot, letters, that each clan, each family had their own unique flag, their own unique sign. And with that, we can come back to source number 11, the Ma'or Vashemesh, which is one of the great Hasidic works on Chumash. As you can see, he was one of the earlier Hasidic rabbis. And someone will tell me when I need to scroll down in the English. Nired ze bazeh, zehin emet, she'am b'nei Yisrael akdoshim, tzrichin liot yachad b'kesher amit v'chazak be'achdut gamor, be'ahava ve'achva. So he says it's true that from the flags we see that the Jewish people must be united. We must have a strong bond with great love and fraternity and brotherhood, and v'reut and friendship. Ach al kol panim, sarich ha'adam lihitbonin v'leida orko v'dugmato, le'eze ish yikrav et atzmo. In addition to that, each individual has to understand and know their own value and their own sort of purpose, and not only who they are, but also who they should associate with. Kifisha ita b'medrash tzadika tamar yifrach, as the medrash teaches us, right? The pasuk we say, part of Kabbalat Shabbat, the Shir Shal Yom of Shabbos, tzaddik katamar yifrach, the righteous will blossom like a date tree. Ma tamarzo yeshbo peirot v'yeshbo alin v'lulavin v'gomer. So the date tree has fruit and it has leaves, and it has the lulav and it has wood. Kach b'Yisrael yesh mehen ba'alei mikra, ba'alei mishnah, ba'alei agada. So too among the Jewish people, there are those who are masters of Mikra, of Tanakh, of the Bible. There are those who are masters of Mishnah. There are those who are masters of Agadah, of moral lessons. Lachin tzarich adam lakir erko, ve'eza makom yeh mikomo, uve'eza anashim yeh menuchato. So therefore, each person must know their own value, what their proper place is, and with which people they should associate. So that they can reach their potential, their full capacity in serving God. Sorry, I think I skipped a line. Right, someone who has great potential or great value. I don't know how we're placing value on people, but someone with great potential should not say, I'll go with those of lesser potential or lesser value. Right, and there I'll be able to really serve God great. I'll be the big fish in the small pond. Ito, right? And it could be that he's right, that by putting himself in a lower standard, he really will come close to God. Nonetheless, he shouldn't leave from what his proper spot is. Rather, he should expect that God will help him. And he, even if he sets himself up among other people of great potential, of great value, that he himself or she herself can achieve greatness in that situation. V'chein katan erech, and someone of lesser potential or lesser strength, lo yomar et choket atzmi le'shev berosh karov la'rav. Shouldn't say, I'm going to really push myself to sit at the head of the table next to the Rebbe. Kadesha eshma divrei Elokim yotzim mipeh kadosh. L'daber l'da'at etza u'mizima l'avodat habari baruch hu. Right, so that I can hear the words of God coming directly from the mouth of this holy leader. Ela yeshev bimkomo haru'i lo. Rather, he should set himself up in his proper place. Okay, so it's, the application that he uses is a little esoteric. Perhaps the language is a little bit not how we would think about things, but the message that each person has their own personal flag, their own banner by which, right, that highlights their strength, their natural inclinations, who they're most suited to work with and associate with, I think is a really powerful idea. That of course we have the national banner, right? The banner of Torah, the banner of the Jewish people, the banner of the state of Israel. There's very broad, lofty terms and ideals that we associate ourselves with. We also have to be aware of what our own personal status is and what our rallying call should be. If we back up, it's a little bit out of order, but if we back up, this is Rav Amital again commenting on the Medrash about the angels. It says, what does it mean for an angel to have a flag? The flag represents the goals and ideals which one sets for oneself. For an angel, the mission upon which it is sent is precisely what it fulfills. There is no gap between its divinely ordained mission and its actions. The Jewish people were striving to reach this level and also wanted to realize their individual missions. Okay, so by realizing what we're striving to accomplish in this world, that's how we're acting angelic, according to this understanding.
Beautiful.
It's quite a powerful description.
Oh, that's great.
And just one more source that I think brings it full circle, or maybe not. Maybe I'm out of order here. But this is Rabbi Hachbam, whose book I've been working my way through this year. That's my new Parsha book for the year. So we're hearing him a lot this year. But he quotes Rav Kook, and I didn't have access to the Rav Kook inside, so we're just going to have to use Rabbi Hachbaum's summary of it. So he says that Rav Kook notes that the pasuk that we began our discussion with states. Let me just read the pasuk again. I'm not seeing what he's commenting on. Where to go? Okay, so anyway, he says that there's two phrases. There's machanehu and there's diglo. Each person in their own camp and each with their own flag. So he says this seems to be redundant, right? We should just be able to say each person in their own camp or each person with their own flag. Why do we need both of them? So he says that Rav Kook says when we think about the categories of mitzvot, we usually think about two categories: mitzvot bein adam lamakom and mitzvot bein adam lechavero. Mitzvot that are between man, person, and God, and interpersonal between man and his fellow man, woman and her fellow woman. Those are the categories we generally think about. Rav Kook says there's two more categories. There's mitzvot bein adam le'amo, between person and their nation, and there's mitzvot bein adam le'atzmo, between a person and themselves.
Mm-hmm.
All Jews, we're in the third paragraph here, all Jews are required to understand and be deeply committed to their responsibilities to the multiple needs of the Jewish collective, Klal Israel. These include the maintenance of its religious, familial, political, cultural, industrial, defense, and chesed institutions. These are the pillars of strength for any Jewish community, and certainly for an advanced society like the one they will develop in Eretz Yisrael. But even in the desert, no Jew could shirk those responsibilities. They are the vital prerequisites for Jewish communal life and our survival as a nation. These are what Rav Kook refers to as mitzvot bein adam le'am, between person and their nation. That is ish al machanehu, a person to their camp, each Jew's responsibility to the Jewish encampment. But there's an equally important set of mitzvot, bein adam le'atzmo, right, between man and himself, that individual Jews are required to pursue their own evolution and personal development as individuals. That is referred to as ish al diglo, every man by his own flag. And so we started by saying that the flags, on the one hand, remind us of the dual symbolism of military might and romantic, great, passionate love. And that as we're setting up camp in the desert, preparing to enter into the land, it has to be with a balance of both. If we only fly the flag as a military symbol, then we're going to be a cold-hearted people and we're going to fight with each other. If we only fly the flag of love and connection, then we're going to be defeated by our enemies. We have to have both. And just as we saw that the flags represent the standard for each tribe, as well as the standard for each individual, so I think Rav Kook brings it back to this dual symbolism as well, that when we're marching under our flags and whatever banners we choose for ourselves, it has to be with this balance of what do I need to do for myself as an individual? How do I take care of myself? How do I continue to develop my own religious, spiritual way? And how do I participate and contribute and be part of the broader community, the broader society? Right? We have this reminder of Ish al Machanehu ve'ish al Diglo, that each person has to be in their camp and with their own personal flag. And so, as I said, I think Sefer Bamidbar is really exciting and interesting in that it is the first attempt in really bringing the Torah into this world in a practical, real way. And as we set up our camp, beginning this exciting journey that continues to this day, we have to do so with the message, the lesson of these flags which remind us that we have to be ready to fight the fight when it's appropriate. We have to be able to show love and deep connection with our family, with our community. We have to be, work on ourselves as individuals and contribute to the nation and society as a whole. Any questions, thoughts, pushbacks?
It just it just makes you wish that all the tribes were back,
Yeah, that's for sure.
Really.
Yeah,
I'd like to say something.
please.
I'm still fascinated by the fact that degel comes up as a verb as well as a noun. And I think that fits in with what you're saying about this. It's a very active idea.
Yeah.
The stand. It's not just something that you carry around, but it's something that that drives your behavior in so many different directions. The thought of the degel.
Yeah, beautiful.
As far as carrying around, I think that when people see a flag, say, they all want to have that. They want their own flag. They want a flag which is the same.
Yeah.
Especially looking at children, like on Simchat Torah.
Oh yeah.
So, but I think that that's a very a basic tendency of humans to want, something to touch, to hold.
Yeah, I think so. All right, that's it for tonight. Stay tuned. I'm not sure about next week's shir because it's the week of Shavuos. So we all might be busy with Yontif preparations, and I'm going to be preparing teaching for Yontif as well. So we'll have to see how all that goes, and I'll send out a message if we're going to have a Parsha shir next week. But speaking of Shavuos, if you haven't registered for our communal lunch on the second day of Shavuos, followed by an afternoon of learning, we'd love to see you all there. Please sign up on the website, and hope everyone has a great night and a great rest of the week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much.
You too. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.